Before we continue, I realized that I forgot to do just a couple of things, so I want to make sure that we're all squared away before we continue on. In lib.rs, we need to add this line to our server as well. And then inside of client, we need to add in use chat server client. That way we can reference our enum types, client and server. And then we also want to bring in use standard sync arc. And so once we have that, now we have enough implemented to allow us to create our main function inside of our client. So the first thing that we want to do is actually bring in another import. So we want to bring in async standard and then task. And now we can start implementing in our main function, which is going to return a chat result. And inside of here, we are going to need to get an argument from our user when we run our program. So we will say let adder equals standard environment args dot nth and then expect. So if they don't provide us any arguments, we expect address and port. So adder is going to be our address and port. So now we can say task, and then we want to block on, and now we're going to create an async code block. And we do this because we have asynchronous functions that we are going to call throughout our program. So we need to wrap it inside of an async code block. And now we want to establish our connection and then run the send and message functions defined up here at the same time. So we'll start establishing our connection. So we'll say let socket equals net TCP stream, and then we want to connect on the adder, so the address that we received from our user, and we want to await. And now we're going to say socket set node delay to true. And node delayed is going to basically allow our stream to send tiny amounts of data instead of waiting for X amount of data before sending anything. So it allows us to send small amounts of data. So we'll say let send equals send, so calling our send function, socket.clone, because up here we needed a TCP stream, which we created with our socket variable. And now we're going to also call messages. So we'll say messages on socket as well. So now we want to exit as soon as either send or replies is completed. So we can use a method called race to complete this. But in order for us to do this, we need to set async standard to unstable in our Cargo.toml file, which I've already done. But essentially, we do what we did for Tokyo and Saturday, and we just set our features, and then we pull in the unstable features from that crate. So now we can say replies dot race send dot await. And race is going to wait for one of these two futures to finish. And now to get rid of these squigglies, we will say OK, and we will end there. So we see we have a couple of that returns. Oh, wrong place. There we go. Now we're good. So race is going to wait for a future to return as ready. And then whichever one returns as ready first gets used and the other future is dropped. So if send finishes first, then this is dropped and we continue on with the send information that we received. And then it also works in the vice versa way. And so now we have some logic done inside our client's main function. So now we can begin moving on to setting up the logic for our server.